It was supposed to be just another Monday morning at Ridgewood High, a school so rich even the janitors wore Rolex watches. The hallways gleamed, lined with expensive lockers, and the air smelled like fresh coffee and too much perfume. Groups of students stood in clusters, bragging about their vacations, their cars, and their parents' money. It was the kind of place where popularity wasn't earned. It was inherited, but that day, something felt different because a new student had just transferred in. Her name was Ava Johnson, a quiet, confident black girl with deep brown eyes and a posture that spoke volumes. She wasn't the kind to chase attention, yet the moment she stepped through those glass doors, the whole hallway seemed to pause. She walked calmly, clutching a folder to her chest, her curls bouncing lightly with each step. No designer bag, no flashy jewelry, just a simple outfit, a confident walk, and an aura that made people turn their heads. Whispers spread fast, like wildfire. "Who's the new girl? Did you see her? She doesn't look like she belongs here. I heard she's a scholarship kid." Ava ignored it all. She had dealt with stares before. She knew what it was like to walk into rooms where people silently judged you before you even said a word. But she also knew who she was, and that gave her peace. As she reached her locker, she accidentally brushed shoulders with someone. The chatter stopped instantly, because that someone was Maddie Turner, the queen bee of Ridgewood High. Maddie was the kind of girl who ran the school like her personal kingdom. Blonde curls perfectly styled, nails polished, and a phone in her hand that never stopped buzzing. Her father was a senator, her mother owned a luxury fashion line, and Maddie made sure everyone knew it. She turned slowly, glaring at Ava from head to toe, like she was scanning her for flaws. "Watch where you're going." "New girl," Maddie snapped, her voice echoing through the hallway. Ava blinked, surprised, then smiled politely. "Sorry about that. Didn't mean to bump into you." The crowd waited for Maddie's reaction, because everyone knew how this went. No one talked back to her, but Maddie wasn't looking for peace. She was looking for power. With a smirk, she took a step closer and deliberately shoved Ava's books out of her hands. They scattered across the floor with a loud slap. Gasps filled the hall. Ava stared down at her books for a moment, then crouched to pick them up. Her hands didn't shake. Her face didn't show anger. She stood back up, holding the books to her chest again, and looked Maddie straight in the eye. Her voice was calm. Almost too calm. "People like you should learn their place," Maddie sneered, folding her arms. For a second, no one breathed. Ava tilted her head slightly, her eyes sharp but peaceful. "Maybe I already know mine," she said softly. "Do you?" The words hit like a thunderclap. A few students gasped. One even whispered, "Oh, she did not just say that." Maddie's face turned red, partly from embarrassment, partly from rage. No one ever challenged her before. Not once. She stepped closer, her voice low but dangerous. "You've got no idea who you're talking to." Ava didn't flinch. "Then maybe you should tell me. Because so far I only see someone scared to lose control." The hallway buzzed again, this time with whispers and hidden laughter. Maddie's friends tugged at her arm, urging her to back off. But she couldn't. Not after being humiliated in front of everyone. Ava turned and began walking away, her steps steady and unbothered. But her words still hung in the air, echoing through the hallway like a quiet challenge. That one line, that quiet confidence, lit a fire in Maddie Turner's heart. And from that moment on, she made herself a promise. She would make Ava Johnson's life a living nightmare. What Maddie didn't know was that she had just picked a fight with someone whose story was far bigger and more powerful than anyone at Ridgewood could have ever imagined. And so, the war began. For the next few weeks, Maddie Turner made it her personal mission to make Ava Johnson's life absolutely miserable. It started with whispers. Then came the laughter. And soon the entire school seemed to turn against the quiet new girl who never raised her voice, never complained, and never fought back. At first, Maddie spread rumors. Small, cruel lies, meant to sting. "She's weird. She's poor. I heard she begged the principal for a scholarship." By lunchtime, those words spread faster than wildfire. Ava could hear them echo behind her as she walked down the halls, but she kept her chin up. Every time someone snickered, she smiled softly. like their words couldn't touch her. And that drove Maddie insane, because bullies feed off reactions. And Ava's calm, graceful silence? It was starving her. One day in the cafeteria, Maddie took things too far. Ava was sitting alone, eating quietly. When Maddie strutted up with her usual entourage, 3 girls who laughed at everything she said even when it wasn't funny. "Hey, Ava," Maddie called sweetly, faking a smile. "You forgot to add some color to your lunch." Before Ava could even respond, Maddie tilted her juice box and poured it slowly over Ava's backpack. Gasps filled the room. The red liquid soaked through Ava's bag, dripping down to the floor. Ava froze for a second. Then, instead of shouting or crying, she simply stood up, grabbed a napkin, and started cleaning up. No anger, no tears, just quiet composure. Maddie's smile faltered, because that wasn't the reaction she wanted. The next day, she tried again, a cruel note on Ava's locker, then a mocking video posted to social media. Still, Ava never broke, and that silence, it was louder than any insult Maddie could have thrown. One Friday afternoon, Maddie was sitting on the bleachers with her friends, bored and restless. She twirled her hair and said, "Watch what I do today. I'm going to make her quit this school." Her friends giggled, thinking she was joking again, but Maddie wasn't joking. Not this time. During gym class, the students were running laps. The sound of sneakers squeaking echoed across the polished floor. Ava was ahead of most, focused, steady, and graceful. Maddie waited until Ava passed her on the next turn. Then, with a fake laugh, she stretched her leg out across the lane. Ava didn't see it coming. Her foot caught, and she went flying, hitting the ground hard, palms scraping against the floor. The entire class went silent. Even Maddie's friends stopped laughing. Ava didn't move for a second. The sound of her breathing echoed in the quiet gym. Then slowly she pushed herself up, dusted off her clothes, and stood tall. No tears. No screams. Just that same calm expression. She turned toward Maddie, her eyes steady, and said softly, "You done?" The way she said it, calm, composed like she was the teacher and Maddie the child, sent chills down everyone's spine. Maddie smirked, pretending to be unfazed. "Not until you learn your place." Ava tilted her head slightly, her voice still soft. "Funny, you keep saying that," she said, taking a step closer. "But I think you're the one who's lost." For a split second, Maddie couldn't speak. She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Then the gym teacher rushed over, shouting, "Now what happened here?" A few students tried to explain, but Ava raised her hand gently. "It's okay, ma'am. It was just an accident," Maddie blinked. She didn't expect Ava to protect her, not after everything. Ava gave her one last look, a mix of disappointment and understanding, and quietly walked away. No revenge. No anger, just peace. The teacher turned toward Maddie, her expression sharp. "We'll talk later." Maddie sat there frozen, heart racing. For the first time, she felt something new. Guilt. Because deep down, she knew Ava could have destroyed her right there in front of everyone. But she didn't, and that scared her more than anything else. What Maddie didn't know was that Ava's calm wasn't weakness, it was power. Because she knew something no one else at Ridgewood High did. Something that was about to shock the entire school and change everything. By the end of that week, Ridgewood High was buzzing with excitement. The school was hosting its biggest event of the year, the Founders Gala. Every year, the auditorium transformed into something out of a movie. Golden drapes, glittering lights, and a stage big enough to host a concert. Students and parents arrived in designer suits and sparkling gowns. It was the one night everyone tried to impress everyone else. But this year felt different. Rumors had been swirling for days. Whispers filled the halls. Did you hear? A celebrity might show up. Someone huge, like presidential huge. The teachers looked nervous, triple-checking every detail. Even the principal kept tugging at his tie, sweating through his speech cards. Something big was definitely coming. Maddie Turner, of course, was in her element. She strutted into the auditorium wearing a red silk dress that probably cost more than most people's rent. Her friends followed, snapping selfies and gossiping about who the mysterious guest could be. "I bet it's some movie star," Maddie said, flipping her hair, "or maybe a senator. My dad knows everyone." She had no idea what was coming. The lights dimmed. The orchestra began to play softly. The principal walked to the microphone and cleared his throat nervously. "Good evening, everyone," he began. "Welcome to Ridgewood's annual Founders Gala. Tonight, we celebrate not just our school's achievements, but the incredible talent and character of our students." He smiled, a little too forced, and continued, "Before we begin, I'd like to welcome a very special guest who's joined us tonight." The crowd stirred, heads turned, cameras lifted, and then the double doors at the back of the auditorium swung open. Security guards stepped in first, scanning the room. Then came the flash of camera lights, the sound of reporters whispering, the hum of recognition sweeping across the crowd. When the figure finally appeared, people gasped audibly, because walking down the aisle, waving casually, was Donald J. Trump, the man himself. Parents whispered, teachers froze, and the students, especially Maddie, looked like they'd seen a ghost. Trump smiled, shaking hands as he walked, surrounded by Secret Service agents in suits. The principal's jaw nearly hit the floor. He stuttered, "Mr. Trump." "Sir, we didn't expect—" Trump lifted a hand politely. "It's all right. I'm just here to support my daughter." The entire auditorium fell silent. You could have heard a pin drop. The principal blinked. "Your daughter?" he repeated slowly, as if his brain couldn't process the words. Trump nodded with a warm grin. "Yes, she's quite an extraordinary young lady." Everyone turned toward the stage, and there, under the soft spotlight, stood Ava Johnson. She was wearing a simple black dress, elegant and understated, her curls gently framing her face. She held a few sheets of paper, her speech, but her hands didn't tremble. She looked poised, powerful, unshaken. Maddie's mouth fell open. "No way," she whispered, shaking her head. "That can't be her." But it was. Trump walked up to the edge of the stage, smiling proudly. "Ava," he called gently, "you ready, sweetheart?" Ava smiled back. "Yes, Dad." That word, Dad, hit the crowd like thunder. The room erupted. Cameras flashed. Reporters shouted questions from the back. "Mr. Trump, when did you adopt her? Is she really your daughter? How long has she been studying here?" The principal nearly fainted trying to keep order. Meanwhile, Maddie just stood frozen, her heart pounding. Her mind replayed every insult, every cruel word, every shove. She had bullied Donald Trump's daughter. Her face turned pale. As Trump took a seat in the front row, Ava stepped up to the microphone. She glanced briefly at Maddie, not with anger, but with quiet strength. Then she looked out at the crowd, took a deep breath, and began her speech. And in that moment, every whisper stopped. Every phone went down. Every eye in the room was on her. The same girl who had been laughed at, mocked, and humiliated was now standing tall, calm, radiant, and ready to speak her truth. No one could have predicted it. No one could look away, because that night the whole world was about to find out who Ava Johnson really was, and why she had never needed to fight back. Ava stepped toward the microphone, the sound of her heels echoing softly across the wooden stage. The entire auditorium was silent, the kind of silence that hums with tension. She glanced down at her notes for a moment, then set them aside. Her voice, calm yet commanding, filled the room. "Good evening, everyone," she began. "I know some of you didn't expect me to be here tonight." Her words hung in the air. People shifted in their seats, uncomfortable. Ava looked around, her gaze moving slowly across the audience. The same students who whispered about her, the teachers who underestimated her, and somewhere in the back, Maddie Turner, who sat frozen in disbelief. "Maybe some of you have judged me," Ava continued, "by my skin color, by my background, or by the fact that I don't fit the image of what you're used to." Her voice didn't shake. It was strong and deliberate. Each word carried weight. She paused. You could hear cameras clicking softly in the background. "But my father taught me something important," she said, her tone warming. "That strength doesn't come from power or money or fame. It comes from how you treat people when no one's watching." From the front row, Donald Trump smiled proudly, hands folded in his lap. You could tell he'd heard that line before, maybe during one of their quiet talks at home away from the cameras, where she'd ask him how to deal with people who tried to tear her down. He had told her, "You don't prove your worth by shouting louder. You prove it by standing taller." And tonight, that's exactly what she was doing, Ava continued, her eyes steady. "I've learned that respect isn't something you demand. It's something you earn. And sometimes, she paused, looking right toward Maddie, the ones you look down on are the ones who'll end up standing above you. The audience sat still for a heartbeat. Then someone began to clap. Then another. And suddenly, the entire auditorium erupted into applause. Teachers stood. Parents clapped. Cameras flashed. Everyone was cheering. Everyone except one person, Maddie Turner. She sat there, hands clasped in her lap, her face pale. Her friends, the ones who once laughed at Ava's expense, slowly pulled away. Some even clapped nervously, avoiding Maddie's eyes. For the first time in her life, Maddie wasn't the center of attention. She wasn't the girl everyone looked up to. She was the girl who had been wrong. As Ava stepped off the stage, reporters rushed toward Trump, microphones flashing. But Ava didn't stop to answer questions or pose for pictures. She just smiled politely, took a deep breath, and walked toward the exit. Later that night, when the gala had ended and the last of the cars had pulled away, Maddie lingered in the hallway. The same hallway where it had all started. The laughter, the whispers, the shove. Her heart pounded as she saw Ava coming down the corridor, walking gracefully. Her father a few steps behind, talking with the principal. Maddie hesitated, then stepped forward. "Ava," she called quietly. Ava turned, calm as ever. "Yes," Maddie swallowed hard. Her voice was barely a whisper. I just wanted to say I'm sorry." Ava studied her for a moment, not with anger, not even pity, just quiet understanding. "I know you didn't like me," Ava said softly, "but you don't have to. Just don't hate people for being different." Her tone wasn't sharp, and it was kind. And somehow that kindness cut deeper than any insult could have. Maddie's eyes welled up. "I didn't mean to." Ava smiled gently and shook her head. "You did, but you learned. That's what matters." For a moment, neither spoke. The faint sound of crickets drifted in through the open doors of the auditorium. "Finally," Maddie whispered, "you're a better person than me." Ava smiled again, the same calm, peaceful smile she'd had since day one. "Maybe not better," she said. "Just someone who decided not to fight fire with fire." And with that, she turned and walked away, her dress swaying lightly, her posture tall and unbothered. Maddie stood there, frozen in the same hallway where it had all begun. Only this time, she wasn't the queen. She was just a girl learning what humility felt like. Behind her, the echo of Ava's words lingered. Respect isn't demanded. It's earned. And that night, for the first time, Maddie truly understood what those words meant. Weeks turned into months, and something remarkable began to happen at Ridgewood High. The laughter behind Ava's back stopped. The whispers faded. The cruel looks vanished. It was as if the entire school had taken a long, hard look in the mirror and didn't quite like what they saw. Maddie, once the loudest voice in every hallway, now kept to herself. Not out of shame, but reflection. She had learned the hardest way that not everyone's story is visible on the surface. And Ava, she didn't gloat. She didn't boast. Instead, she did something no one expected. One morning, she put up flyers around the school. At the top, in bold letters, it read, "Respect first. Meeting today at lunch. Everyone's welcome." When students saw her name at the bottom, most thought it was just another motivational event. But it was more than that. It was Ava's quiet rebellion, a stand against everything Ridgewood had once represented: arrogance, privilege, and judgment. At the first meeting, only 4 people showed up. By the second week, it was 12. By the end of the month, it was half the school. They didn't come for speeches. They came to listen, to stories, to experiences, to each other. And then one afternoon, the door creaked open, and Maddie walked in, every head turned. Some people whispered, but Ava just smiled. "Glad you could make it," she said simply. Maddie sat down in the back, her usual confident smirk replaced with quiet humility. After the session, she approached Ava and said softly, "You were right. I didn't understand before, but I do now." Ava's response was simple. "That's what this is for." No grudge. No revenge, just grace. Months later, Ridgewood High buzzed with excitement. Graduation day had arrived. The gymnasium was decorated with blue and gold streamers. The school band played proudly and parents filled the seats, cameras flashing. When it was Ava's turn to speak as class representative, The room fell silent once again, the same way it had that night at the gala. She stood tall behind the podium, her voice filled with calm power. "Throughout this year, I've learned that strength isn't about how loud you are or how much attention you get," she began. "It's about what you stand for, even when you're standing alone." Her eyes swept across the crowd, landing on the front row where her father, Donald Trump, sat with a proud smile. People often see someone quiet and assume weakness. But silence doesn't mean submission, Ava continued. Sometimes silence is strength, the kind that listens before it reacts, that forgives before it fights. Her words hung in the air, deep and piercing. The crowd erupted in applause, some even standing, and as she stepped off the stage, she saw Maddie, not hiding in the back but sitting in the front row, clapping with genuine admiration. Their eyes met for a brief moment, and Maddie mouthed, "Thank you." Ava smiled back, her heart full. Because this wasn't a story about revenge or fame, it was about redemption. About how two girls from completely different worlds managed to change each other. Later that evening, as Ava walked across the empty school courtyard, a gentle breeze brushed past her face. The same place where she was once mocked now felt peaceful. She looked up at the sky and whispered, "Thank you." Not to her father, not to the crowd, but to the journey, the pain that shaped her, the strength that guided her, and the grace that defined her. Because in the end, Ava Johnson, the quiet, confident girl who once walked the halls of Ridgewood High, had taught everyone a lesson they'd never forget. Power can demand fear, but grace earns respect. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more powerful and inspiring stories. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you never miss the next one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.